I'm Dan Greenspan for Fox Sports Next, joined by Steve Summers of eDuck. After Oregon comes away, it was a bit closer than might have been expected based on how the first half played out, but Oregon comes away with a 59-17 win here at Memorial Stadium over California. Steve, it was a shake-up Saturday, and it looked that way. Maybe Oregon might fall victim to for a while. How were they able to maintain their composure and ultimately pull away in the second half?
Well, I think it's Marcus Mariota was the big key to the Oregon win. He comes out and he throws for what, 377, has 6 touchdowns, and he has a great performance. There was obviously a lot of concern at one point in the game where he took off on a run, put the Ducks into great field position, but came up with a dangling left arm, and that got everybody's attention. But he was able to come back onto the field, led the Ducks to another touchdown on the next drive, and stayed in the game until the game was firmly in hand. But you know, the interesting thing, the Ducks were hit by the injury bug. At one point, I noticed that the Oregon defensive line was manned by all freshmen, redshirt freshmen, true freshmen, and I think Cal was able to take advantage of that, particularly in the running game, where they were very successful. But after a while, it seemed like that Oregon defensive line started to figure things out, started to gel, and Cal was not so successful at it. But I think just from watching the game, probably the biggest thing was that the Bears at some point just figured out that Mariota was a special player. He was a tough character to deal with.
Yeah, much like we saw last week, where USC also had success running the ball. Once Oregon builds up enough of a lead and you have to abandon the run, it puts you in the position that they want, where they can just rush the passer and get aggressive in the secondary and create turnovers. But obviously Stanford next week, with their great running game, Taylor Hart suffered what would be a fairly serious injury, some other injuries on the defensive line. How would you assess Oregon's chances going into that key game in the Pac-12 North next Saturday night?
It's going to be a good question because Oregon, of course, does not discuss injuries, so it's really hard to know, how bad are these guys hurt. We saw Avery Patterson leave the locker room on crutches, so it's pretty good, pretty good indicator that he's probably going to be out for at least a period of time, and whether he'll be back this season remains to be seen. I would think that the Duck defensive coordinator, Nick Aliotti, is going to be doing a lot of scheming and planning on how to best utilize his talent that he has available, and to try to slow down Stanford's straight ahead, their ball control and pretty much where they're going to go, and it's going to be north and south. They're not going to try to get out on the edges on anybody. So that's a good question. All remains to be seen when people are going, to post-practice interviews. There'll be a lot of people, watching to see, which players come out. If they're on crutches, are they walking normally? So that's what's in store for this next week.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating game. Kevin Hogan, who came in and led the win over Oregon State for Stanford, he does bring a little more of an option look. He's going to get on the edge a little more. Oregon's running game, they were held to a season low, 180 yards. Kenyon Barner, 65 yards on 20 carries. Was it a case of Cal selling out against the run, or were there some issues that you saw in terms of, how the Oregon run game was not able to get on track?
Well, possibly. It was sort of a letdown from last week's big performance against USC. But I thought that the Bears really had a pretty good defensive scheme in place. I don't think they were expecting Mariota to be such an efficient passer. And so when the run didn't work, they threw the ball. Yeah,
Chris McCain, Cal's outside linebacker, talked about it, how they were able to attack the seams with Josh Huff and Cole Ayerla, the tight end, and he said that it's not until, they don't do that on the first couple plays, they do it you know, after they pick up a couple of first downs and the safeties and the outside linebackers, you know, get thinking and get tired, and then they hit you with that play action, and they throw that post pattern, and all night long it was available for Mariota to hit the seams of the Cal defense.
Well, he did, and if he was going to challenge Johnny Football, who had that great success, who incidentally was a verbal commitment at the same time Marcus Mariota was a verbal commitment to Oregon, and he ended up at Texas A&M. Of course, they had the big win today over Alabama. So, but Mariota had a sensational night tonight.
Yeah, Oregon survives a shake-up Saturday, and who knows, the game that was supposed to be played at the beginning of the year got canceled. Oregon, Kansas State, that might end up being the national title game.
That'd be ironic.
Very much so, very much so. For Steve Summers of eDuck, I'm Dan Greenspan for Fox Sports Next.